After reading the diary, Gwen felt as if she had stumbled upon something too big for her to fully understand. She was shaken, but the more she thought about it, the more she felt she had to uncover the truth. The village of Everbrook had always been peaceful, and the idea that something dark had been hiding beneath its surface made Gwen's heart beat faster. The next day, she met Madeline in the village square. Madeline noticed that Gwen seemed different, more serious than usual. "Are you okay?" Madeline asked, tilting her head. Gwen hesitated for a moment. She wanted to tell Madeline everything, but the strange words in the diary, betrayal, curse, and family, still echoed in her mind. How could she explain something so strange? "I've been thinking a lot," Gwen said finally, "about Lady Adelina. There's something about her, something she's not telling us." Madeline raised an eyebrow. "You're not still bothered by her, are you? She's just a woman who lives in a big house. It's probably nothing." Gwen shook her head. "No, it's not nothing. I found something. A diary. It talks about her mother and a curse." Madeline stared at Gwen in disbelief. "A curse? Gwen? That sounds like something from a storybook. You're overthinking it." But Gwen couldn't shake the feeling. She knew there was more to Lady Adelina than anyone realized. She had to find out the truth. Henry had noticed Gwen's unease too. He had always been able to tell when something was bothering her, even if she tried to hide it. One evening, as they were walking through the village, Henry stopped and looked at Gwen with concern. "You've been quiet lately," he said, his voice soft. "Are you okay? You're not yourself." Gwen looked at him, her heart heavy with all the questions she still had. "I don't know, Henry. I can't stop thinking about Lady Adelina. I think there's more to her past than anyone knows." Henry frowned. He had always cared about Gwen, but he had never seen her like this, so troubled by something. "Do you want me to help?" he asked. Gwen looked at him, surprised. "You'd help me?" "Of course. You're my friend, and I don't like seeing you upset," Henry said, offering a reassuring smile. Gwen felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had always known Henry was a good friend, but this moment made her realize just how much she could depend on him. Together, they decided to go back to Lady Adelina's house and look for more clues. Maybe the answers they were looking for were hidden somewhere inside. That night, Gwen and Henry waited until the village was quiet. The moon hung high in the sky, and the world seemed still as they made their way to Lady Adelina's house. The tall trees around the house seemed to tower over them, casting long, dark shadows on the ground. Gwen's heart raced in her chest, but Henry's steady presence beside her gave her some comfort. They reached the house and slipped inside through a side door, just as Gwen had done the night before. The house was as cold and quiet as ever, and Gwen's breath seemed to echo in the empty halls. They made their way to the study, where the old diary had been hidden. Gwen's eyes scanned the room, her mind racing with what she had read in the diary. She had to know more. "Where do you think she keeps her secrets?" Henry whispered, his voice barely audible. Gwen didn't answer. She moved toward the bookshelf, her eyes searching for anything that seemed out of place. Finally, her hand landed on a small wooden box tucked away behind a row of books. She lifted it carefully and placed it on the table. "What's that?" Henry asked, leaning closer. Gwen opened the box, her hands trembling. Inside, she found a collection of old letters, each one tied with a faded ribbon. The letters were written in a language Gwen couldn't understand, but she could tell they were very old. The smell of ink and paper filled the air as she opened one of the letters. As she read, Gwen felt her breath catch in her throat. The letter spoke of betrayal, of a family torn apart by lies and mistakes. It mentioned Lady Adelina's mother and a man who had promised her everything, only to turn away when she needed him most. Gwen's heart sank as she read the words. She realized that the curse in the diary was real. The woman Gwen had once thought of as elegant and kind had a past full of pain, a past she had been trying to escape. Gwen closed the letter and looked at Henry, her eyes wide with shock. "It's true," she whispered. "The curse. It's real." Henry took a deep breath, his hand resting on Gwen's shoulder. "We need to tell someone," he said, his voice low. "This is too big for us to handle alone." Gwen nodded. She knew they couldn't keep the truth hidden forever. But even as she spoke, a part of her wondered what would happen if Lady Adelina found out that they had discovered her secret. Would she be angry? Would she try to stop them? The next day, Gwen and Henry met at the village square. They both felt the weight of the secret they had uncovered. Lady Adelina's past was darker than they had imagined, and they knew they had to face her. But how could they confront her without causing more harm? "I think we need to talk to her," Gwen said, her voice trembling. "She needs to face the truth." Henry looked at her with concern. "Are you sure about this? It's going to be hard. What if she doesn't want to talk about it?" "I have to know why she's been hiding it for so long," Gwen said firmly. "We can't keep running from the truth." That afternoon, Gwen and Henry walked to Lady Adelina's house. They didn't know what to expect, but they knew they had to do it. They knocked on the door, and Lady Adelina answered with a soft smile, as if nothing had changed. "Gwen, Henry," she said, her voice calm. "What brings you here today?" "We need to talk to you," Gwen said quietly, looking into Lady Adelina's eyes. "There's something we know, something about your past." Lady Adelina's smile faltered for just a moment, and in that moment, Gwen saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. She stepped aside and let them in. "I think we should sit down," Lady Adelina said, leading them to the sitting room. "I'm sure you have many questions." Gwen took a deep breath and began. "We know about the letters, the curse. We know what happened to your family." Lady Adelina's face grew pale, but she didn't say a word. She simply sat down, her hands resting in her lap. "I don't want to hide it anymore," Lady Adelina said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "You're right. I've been running from my past for so long. But it's time to face it. I owe it to my family and to myself." Lady Adelina's confession was a relief, but it was also heartbreaking. The pain she had carried for so many years was finally out in the open. And Gwen and Henry knew that the journey to healing had only just begun. Over the following weeks, Gwen, Henry, and Madeline spent time with Lady Adelina, helping her restore the house and garden. They planted new flowers, brightening the space that had once felt so dark. Lady Adelina began to smile more, her sadness slowly fading as she started to accept her past. As Gwen and Henry grew closer, they realized that their feelings for each other had deepened. What had once been a friendship was now turning into something more, something neither of them had expected. Lady Adelina, too, began to heal. She no longer hid in the shadows, and the village of Everbrook started to see her for who she really was. A woman who had been through great pain, but who was now embracing a new beginning. End. A stronger Everbrook. The village of Everbrook flourished. It became a place where people's pasts were respected, where healing and growth were possible. Gwen and Henry continued to support one another, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Lady Adelina, once a mysterious figure, was now seen as a woman who had found peace. Everbrook was no longer just a quiet village. It was a place of understanding, where the past was no longer something to be feared, but something to be embraced